In Lingua Podcast, live from Dessau, is broadcast from Middle Deutschland and features all things languages. The show is hosted by our teachers, presenting students and guests from all walks of language learning experiences. For our next episode of En Lingua Podcast, live from Dessau, we're joined by our new American friend. His name is Richard. He's visiting Dessau for the first time, and he is a ESL instructor. He's also trilingual, bilingual. Can you say trilingual?
Yeah, I mean, a little rusty on the Turkish, but...
Okay, so what languages do you speak?
So, I mean, I'm fluent in English and Spanish, and last time I took a test, I was B2 in Turkish.
In Turkish?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I'm excited for you to be here today is because you have traveled and lived in many different countries around the world teaching and studying languages.
Yes.
So you're the perfect guest for our podcast. So, where do we begin? What foreign language did you fall in love with first?
Okay, so that would definitely be Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the first language I was actually introduced to, but it was the first one I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Because I've originally studied Latin. It was a core class at the school I went to, and that was what I first studied. But in my spare time, I was friends with the Spanish teacher's daughter, and so I was introduced to Spanish through that.
So how old were you when you were introduced to Latin?
6th grade, so that would make me 12,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the purpose of... I also took Latin, I think, in the 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they teach us Latin in the 6th grade? And is it still in the curriculum?
It's not a required course. It might be back in... I went to a private developmental research school in Florida, part of Florida State University.
Okay.
It might still be required there because the university has a big Latin department, and so they need practice for their upcoming teachers. But it's not... Maryland, where I'm originally from, actually has one of the supposed best Latin programs in the country.
Okay.
I didn't find it that way, but we lots of times they tell you to study Latin because it helps you on the SATs.
Okay.
There's an average of like 20 points increase for people who studied Latin who didn't.
So they could be better able to identify the
Roots,
root
prefixes, suffixes,
Okay.
yeah.
That makes sense.
And oftentimes your Latin one includes some basic Greek, so
Okay.
there's for suffixes purposes, because that's how the language was taught when I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have some current information about this.
Okay.
In my high school now, they are teaching it as a living language where there's actually the speaking aspect of it.
Interesting.
Yes. But when I was taught, it was still taught as a dead language, which it is. And so we only had reading, writing. And so a lot of the language a lot of the class involves learning derivatives and roots for English,
Okay.
long English words.
So when did you take your first Spanish course?
So then my first official Spanish course would have been when we moved to Maryland, back to Maryland, in the 7th grade. I took introductory Spanish for it was a really basic level course. And then I actually took the first full year of Spanish my 8th grade year.
Okay. Was your teacher a native speaker?
No, my teacher was a substitute for half the year. But no, my teacher was actually American. I did not have my first native speaker until Spanish 5, my senior year in high school.
Okay, so the 5th year that you were taking
That was
Spanish.
my first introduction to a native
So
speaker.
after those 4 years of a non-native teacher, could you communicate?
Oh, basic communication, absolutely, yes. But I find that having a native speaker really helps with comprehension.
Okay.
More than being able to... I could produce book-level Spanish, but I had a lot of trouble understanding a native speaker's speed and there are a lot of different accents. Lots of times when you're learning a foreign language, everybody has this, all the students have the same gringo accent when it's Spanish, and the teacher does as well. But native speakers all have those little nuances that are different for each individual person, not let alone each of the different 20-odd countries that speak Spanish.
Okay.
So
when you were in high school, were there any types of programs for you to travel to Spanish-speaking countries?
Unfortunately, no. And I hear there are programs like that in the States, like Education Foundation and things like that.
Okay.
But I come from a really small town, so they didn't have the money for that.
Okay.
To support the students, because it's expensive, and so lots of times the schools will help the students pay for it.
And a lot of times I think the teacher has a connection back to home country or home city, and they can organize that a little bit better than somebody
Sometimes,
else.
like in my university, that's the way it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in the 12th grade. You've got your first native Spanish-speaking teacher. Did you see a lot of growth in your language skills that year?
In my accent, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of influence from her.
Why do you think why do you think when we try to mimic the accents as language learners, is that important because it makes us feel like we're speaking more fluent?
I'm not sure. I know for me, I can speak on a personal level. For me, it was just one, I had a great deal of respect for her.
Okay.
And so that's generally necessary for you to try to emulate someone's accent.
What country was she from?
She was from Uruguay.
Okay. And you even say that with a Spanish accent.
Yes.
I would pronounce that?
Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Yes.
No, but that's okay because, this is funny. When I hear Iran and Iraq, my ears hurt.
Yeah.
Like Iran, Iraq.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my first exposure to the names of those countries, even because I was never really good at geometry. Geography. Yeah. Okay. Third time's a charm. Anyway, I was never good at geography. And so the first time I really studied and paid attention to those country names was in Spanish class. So that was my first introduction to the pronunciation. So it's more natural for me to pronounce them that way sometimes.
So how do you say Mexico?
Mexico.
How do you say Honduras?
Honduras.
How do you say Bolivia?
Bolivia.
Argentina?
Argentina.
Chile?
Chile.
Ecuador?
Ecuador.
Okay, perfect. So that sparked your interest.
Yes. Yeah.
In because
I was interested in language in general.
Who in high school is I took Spanish in high school, but for you it sparked an interest in learning a foreign language. For me, it didn't.
I studied 3 languages in high school.
Okay.
I started with Spanish in 8th grade in middle school, and then I continued with that, and then every 2 years I added another language. So by my senior year, I was in my 5th year of Spanish, my 3rd year of Latin, and my 1st year of French.
So you stuck with Latin
for 3 years. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's hard.
It was fun for me. It was like a puzzle.
Okay.
Because like I said, it was all reading and writing.
Did you excel in foreign languages
I did.
In school? Okay.
I did. That was like my parents used to joke because I had an A in Spanish, Latin, and French, and I had a C in English, and they said I should be in the ESOL classes.
Wait, explain to our listeners, what is an ESOL class?
ESOL for English for speakers of other languages.
Okay.
It's what we have for whenever you have a newly arrived immigrant.
Right.
It's to learn the language for school.
Coming to the school. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So how did you continue your language learning journey after high school?
So I originally, when I was in high school, I was taking some courses at the university concurrently. I was originally planning on taking computer science as my major, but after I graduated high school, I decided Spanish and secondary education was going to be my goal.
Perfect.
I wanted to be a high school Spanish teacher.
Right.
And so I started school at Salisbury University, which is part of the Maryland University system. And
apparently one of the greatest
it is in the
liberal arts colleges in the country.
Oh, I'm not sure it's ranking in liberal arts.
Let's say East Coast.
University overall, it's in the top 100.
Okay.
So there. And
But you're not wearing your sweatshirt today. So.
I'm not. It's in the wash. That's the only reason.
That's okay.
But so I started in school. I didn't do well. I was not prepared. I should have taken a gap year. And so I dropped out, and not wanting to completely waste my time and at the same time escape from a lot of things, I moved to Mexico.
Okay.
Yes.
That is a bold
It was.
move.
Yes. Like, that's what happens when you're young. Like,
You take more chances?
Yes. And it put me in a different mindset for the rest of my life, honestly, because I will do it now. Still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Are you continuing, like, at this point, you're able to communicate with people in the country?
Yes. So it was a bit difficult at first. I would say for the first 3 months, because I had what we would call as a book Spanish. So I was I had all the grammar and everything. It was all finished. It was all up in my brain. People could understand me easily, but I couldn't understand anybody.
Okay.
Unless they spoke extremely slowly, and it was difficult. But I was teaching English, so I was in an environment at a language center similar to this.
Okay.
We taught Portuguese, Italian, Dutch, German, Spanish, English, French, with mostly native speakers.
Okay.
And anyway, so I always had people that spoke English around me, and that was helpful. One thing I noticed was that my Spanish wasn't improving. My speaking wasn't improving.
Okay.
And there's actually a really boring reason to that.
Well, I mean, this is interesting because, like, people get kind of stuck.
Yes.
Because they've reached a certain level of accuracy, a certain level of fluency, and how do you get
they
to
can
that?
interact, actually. So you can become overfluent beyond your accuracy, and then your errors become, or rather your mistakes become errors, as we put it, where it's like they become more solidified and it's much more difficult to remove them.
Give me an example.
Okay. Like linguistically? Like in Spanish?
In Spanish, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean...
Yeah. We can translate it into English.
Yeah, so, like, for example, if I would say something like... me gustaría que hubieras ido conmigo, or something like that. And sometimes
I want to eat something?
I would have liked you to come with me. But it was flip-flopped. So
I heard comida. Okay, so yeah.
It was ido conmigo, with me.
Conmigo, not comida.
Yeah.
Okay, food conmigo. Okay.
So I would flip-flop the verb tenses. So so you really should say, let me see. Let me think. It's hard, like, out of us conversation. Me hubiera gustado que fuese conmigo. Right. I should have used the subjunctive for the second part, and the perfect tense for the first part. And,
so you're talking about the nitty-gritty grammatical structures.
Right, and it should come natural. And one of the things is, so lots of times they equate Mexican Spanish with American English, in that there are certain aspects of grammar that we tend to ignore or avoid, not use, say them in different ways.
Right.
And so I was also combating that.
Okay.
Like...
That makes sense.
Based on what I had learned in school, because I had learned, like, the full thing. And so it was causing a lot of mistakes. But I was aware of it. And as we all know from the sociolinguistics noticing hypothesis, that is how you can overcome and continue to grow, as long as you are aware of what you are saying. And I learned for myself, and when I'm teaching, I also make my students do this. If there's an error in their sentence, I don't have them just correct that error. I have them say the whole sentence again to get the whole idea and the logic of the sentence, rather than the rules of the grammar. Okay. And because a lot of language is just, it sounds right? Like we call that our native grammar, our inherent grammar, and intuitive grammar.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you need to hear the whole thing.
So what kind of students were you teaching in Mexico?
Okay. So in Mexico, let's see, I did have one child who was 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only child's class I have, but he was, I was more of a babysitter for him because he was completely fluent. He had gone to an American school from kindergarten on.
Okay, so you were a babysitter.
So his mom and dad just needed like a couple hours off every day, which is fine. And I understood why, because that's my...
He was a handful.
Well, I'm not going to put that out there.
But, no, he was a handful, right?
Yeah, he was a handful,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And let's see. The rest of my students were anywhere from, like, a lot of, like, college-age students. Maybe they needed it for their job. Mm-hmm. Maybe they needed it to continue growing in their job. Like, there were certain places that doubled their salary if they spoke English.
Okay.
And sometimes it was older, rich people who were bored.
Okay.
And wanted something to do.
Okay.
Like Magdalena. I had a woman. She was really nice. She hated me. Absolutely hated me at the beginning because what we used to do is we would switch teachers halfway through the level. Uh-huh. And so I got her at level 1 halfway through. Okay. She had a Spanish speaker for the first half, and then she had a native speaker for the second half. And so we were not allowed to speak Spanish. Okay. And so she assumed I didn't speak Spanish. And she used to say things like, oh, I wish Israel were still here, things like that. But that was also one of the things that made me love teaching because
Israel was the name of the first teacher.
Yeah, Israel, yeah. So at the end, at the end of the level, she came in one day and she said, "Teacher, I have to tell you, I watch the news in English, and I've studied English for a long time at a lot of different courses, and I never learned anything. But for the first time, I was watching the news today, and I didn't understand everything, but I understood more than I ever have before." And she was so happy, and that made me really happy. Okay. And then she loved me. She took us out for lunch, and she was great.
Was it difficult to hide your language skills?
So, no, not at the basic levels because they're just, I mean...
So there's not a lot of talk like, oh, we got this guy from America. He's going to teach you English. Oh, by the way, like, he speaks Spanish.
No, because that doesn't matter because there's a very strict rule at that school about speaking... everything has to be done in the target language. Okay. 100%. Okay. From the teacher. So when you have a non-native, they assume, or rather a native speaker of the language you're teaching, they assume, I assume they assume that you don't speak Spanish.
That you don't speak Spanish.
Yeah. Okay. But like in my upper level classes, when we're in breaks and stuff.
Right.
When they're a little more comfortable and they're not going to like stress out and freak out in class, they know I speak Spanish. Yeah, sure. We would talk on the breaks. Secretly, because we're not supposed to talk on the breaks either. But it
was a very rule-oriented language school.
It was. I worked for them in Colombia as well, and there they used to record all of the classes, so not getting away with it there. Okay. But in Mexico, it was a little more lax.
So they recorded the courses?
In Colombia, yes.
Okay, for like video recording or audio?
No, it was an audio. There was a microphone on the top in the ceiling, and then
so they could listen to it, or for the student to take it home.
No, it was randomly every month or every 2 months we would get like feedback? An evaluation.
Okay,
and we would never know which class it was going to be. So,
is that legal now with data protection policies? I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't see. I mean,
is there a camera in here somewhere? Or a microphone?
We signed a contract too, so
okay. You knew that it was.
We knew that basically everything was recorded.
Okay.
And then they would pick one.
Okay, so you jumped to Colombia there real quick. Like you went from Mexico. No, it's okay. You went from Mexico to Colombia.
Yeah, there's actually 7 years in between there. But
okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go into that, or do you want to stay?
Oh, there was not much happened in those 7 years. I went back to the United States. I worked to pay off some debts, like the fact that I started university and didn't finish it. I did go back to school at one point. I took some courses, some general ed courses at the local college. Okay. And then I was getting tired of being there again, so I went to Colombia.
Okay. Again, to teach?
Yes, at the same school, same company.
Why Colombia? It's always a dangerous country.
It's interesting that you should ask that because there is this reason I specifically picked Colombia. So my accent in Spanish was very Mexican when I came back from the US for obvious reasons.
Right.
And that is not considered a prestigious accent. Not that I care at this point. Like back then I did.
Right.
And according to the Royal Spanish Academy, the most prestigious and accurate accent is not Spain, but Colombia. Yeah, this comes from Spain.
Okay.
They stated that Colombia has the most neutral, proper accent in the language.
Okay.
So I actually went there to learn the Colombian accent to kind of, and I was successful for a while. I reverted to some sort of amalgamation of gringo, Mexican, Colombian now, but
Were you living in Bogotá?
I was in the capital, Bogotá.
I was thinking, like, what is the capital city? Okay, Bogotá, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in the capital city in Colombia, again, working with languages, teaching English,
Yep.
working on the accent, developing the accent. Did you enjoy living in Colombia?
No.
Because?
I had culture shock.
Okay.
Yeah.
From Mexico, not America.
Well, see, the thing I found in Mexico is a lot of like minor details in culture are the same, like restaurant culture and bathroom culture and all of that kind of stuff. It's the same. And I assume that's because it's so close. But in Colombia, everything was different. Like you had to carry toilet paper around with you because bathrooms didn't have toilet paper.
Okay.
Yeah. There are no hosts or hostesses at the restaurant. So if you go to a restaurant and you stand there waiting for a host or hostess, all of the other customers start staring at you and it gets embarrassing for a shy person like me.
Okay.
And there was a lot of little things like that that just added up to I was super depressed and stressed out and
Okay.
I had to go back to the States.
How long did you stay in Colombia?
9 months, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you living with in an apartment or in a
I
student?
lived in quite a few places actually.
Okay.
So I was staying with a friend at first, who was working for some oil company and he had a spare room. And then I moved to another friend's house where he had a room that I could rent. And then he like left there. So we went downtown and rented 2 rooms at it's like a villa. It was an amazing house, actually. It was really old. It's kind of cool.
Like a private room in a villa.
Yeah.
Cool.
And, but that was horrible because all I had was a mattress, one of those thin mattresses. That was it. That was all I had. There was nothing. I was living out of my suitcase.
Yeah.
And this is probably part of the problems I was having mentally with living there. And I think that's it. Yeah. And I used to have to, the buses are like really
super full.
Yeah. Like, and the doors, they don't require the doors to be closed. So it is not uncommon for me to go to work with a leg hanging out of the bus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, it was not pleasant.
Well, you were there to work on your accent.
Right.
And you got another, outside of the United States, like another cross-cultural living experience, learning experience.
And Colombia is a great place.
Yeah.
Like, it is. And, like, I look back, that was all on me, the whole not enjoying it there. Because there were a lot of things that I just didn't even see because I wasn't in the right mindset. Okay. But Colombia is beautiful. And even Bogotá is beautiful. Okay. And it's a great place to go. I would love to go back.
Okay.
But it's expensive, so.
As a tourist or to work?
I don't know. Both. I do I like staying in places for long periods of time, so getting a job would be important.
Getting the right job.
Yeah. The same job would have been great, actually.
Okay.
I left on good terms, so.
Okay.
They will still hire me again.
It's nice. So let's talk about, so now you've studied Spanish in high school for 5 years. You've lived in Mexico. You've lived in Colombia. You are a bilingual person at this time, Spanish and English. Mm-hmm. What takes you to Turkey?
This is where it gets interesting. Okay, so I had been working at McDonald's as a human resources manager while I was working at Colombia. When I was in Colombia, I took a leave of absence to go there, and with the intention of not coming back, but I came back, so I still had my job waiting for me. And I came back in like April or something, right before the season started for the summer months. And one of the things I I was working in a beach town, and so we have a lot of J1s, I think, the student visas that come in, and they work for us. Like in the wintertime, there's 5 people that work in the store. In the summertime, there's 150 people that work in the store.
So you're hiring summer workers from... Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
from other countries. Yeah,
all over the place. Like we had...
So it's a work and travel, basically.
It is, exactly. They're all work and travel. And at the end of the summer, due to, I don't know, time differences for school starting and things like that, like the Ukrainians and Russians tend to go first back home. And then for like a month, we need workers, and the Turks stay there for longer. So I used to have Turkish employees, and of course I always make friends with my employees. I have some really close friends, and I met Berkay was his name, and he was from Turkey, and he asked me one day, you know, we were talking about my travels and things like that, and he asked me, he's like, why don't you go to Turkey? Yeah. And I said, oh, I don't know, I'd have to get a job. And he asked me for my CV. And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from someone in Turkey offering me a job. Okay. And then 2 weeks after that, I went to Turkey.
So
just like that.
It was that quick.
It was, yes.
Izmir.
So I actually went to Bursa at first.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell our listeners what is significant about Bursa.
Bursa is the old capital of the Ottoman Empire.
Right.
It was one of the old capitals of the Ottoman Empire. It's also where I think Osman Bey is buried.
Most of the sultans are buried there.
Yeah.
Right. And it's home to the world famous Iskender.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Iskender.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I never ate Iskender, even though it's one of my favorite Turkish foods.
What?
I never had it when I was in Bursa. Yeah.
Okay, you got to go back right now.
Yeah, I was going to have it my first week I was there, but I was by myself, and they don't have hosts or hostess either in Turkey, and so I was standing there
Richard,
waiting
what is your deal with hostess and hostess?
Yeah. Well, that's how the American culture is, and it was. But I had learned from my experiences in Colombia. I'm like, oh, okay. And somebody actually did come to me and said something in Turkish, and I said, "Hayır, teşekkürler," because that's all I could say, and I walked away. Okay. And I ate at Arby's.
No, thank you. I'll go to Arby's. I was at the Iskender place. No, thank you.
I had to point at the menu.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she kept saying...
That's how we all start out, right? We
she's
point.
Like, blah, 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 blah. And I said, evet, yes. And I ended up getting all the extras, large size. I know at one point she said, what would you like to drink? And I just said, yes. So I got a Coke. And yeah.
There's a büyük ayran coming with that.
Okay,
so Bursa. So I know you. The reason I know you, we've never met. We met for the first time a couple of weeks ago, but I knew of you in Izmir.
Right. Yeah, after 5 weeks, I moved to Izmir. I had a really bad that job that I got.
So Berkay didn't work out.
No, Berkay. Well, no, it wasn't his fault.
Okay, Berkay is still a good guy.
Yeah, Berkay's my friend. He let me stay. I stayed with his parents my first few weeks.
Cool.
I was in Bursa. No, he actually gave my CV to a friend of his who gave it to this school. Okay. And this school called me. This school offered me what I didn't know anything about payment, and I thought it sounded like, okay, that sounds like enough money. It wasn't. They promised a lot of things that they never came through on, like place to live,
right,
help with the visa,
right,
a paycheck,
right,
and I never got any of those things,
right.
And I was working 70 hours a week,
yeah,
with no days off. The next 2 I worked for
just
were great,
exploiting native
or
speakers.
The next 3 I worked for. I worked for 3 more in Izmir.
Okay, I'm going to cut that out of the podcast.
Yeah,
they're great.
the ones in Izmir are.
Okay, the ones in so the Bursa language school experience horrible, but then you take a bus.
This was also like a private one, so this wasn't. I mean, like not a franchise. It was a privately owned business.
Okay, so they might be struggling more financially, and they just want to
as is deserved for the way he treated me.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah. So anyway, I had a friend in Bursa that I'd made, and he sent my CV to a school in Izmir.
Okay.
They called me in the middle of class. So I answered the phone and walked out on the balcony, accepted the job, finished my day of work, went home, packed, and got on a bus for Izmir. Yeah. I didn't didn't owe that man anything.
Right.
After having me work 5 weeks there, 70 hours a week without pay.
And you're working in Turkey language schools? Our listeners might want me interested in. You're working on Sunday as well.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, and then I started working in Izmir, and I worked there for 6 years.
For our listeners language schools are very popular in Turkey because not only do they offer like English language courses, they offer like how to take all these different standardized tests that Turks have to take.
Mm-hmm.
So, Turkish students, man, they go to high school during the week. On Saturdays and Sundays, they're in language courses studying standardized tests.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those tests are in English, right? If they want to go into an English language program in university, is that right? I've forgotten.
Well, there are certain ones that I wouldn't teach as a native speaker.
Right.
Like the Yokdil, and I believe Yokdil is one for, I think that's for getting into college.
That's right.
And they have an English one.
Okay, so it's like the SAT, basically.
Kind of. Well, I think the YDS, the YDS, is actually more like the SAT in that aspect.
Okay.
Or at least for the English portion. I really don't know much about those tests.
Yeah.
But
Dude,
because there's a lot of memorization. They have no speaking or listening sections.
Right.
So it's different.
So yeah, it's reading and it's writing, right? That's what it is. Okay.
I wouldn't even say there's writing.
Okay.
I think it's mostly multiple choice questions.
Okay.
Maybe short answer. Fill in the blank.
So you get to Izmir.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about learning Turkish.
Okay.
Is that complicated?
Yes. Well, for the first time I was learning a language outside of the language family that I had known previously. Like, I learned like Latin and Spanish and French are all in the same family, right? They all come from Latin, obviously. And so there were a lot of crossovers. Grammar is the same. Vocabulary is very similar, things like that. Mm-hmm. And for the first time, I'm learning a language from another language branch.
Okay.
And another, like the Spanish and French are particle-driven, preposition-driven languages, whereas Turkish is agglutinating, meaning it has lots of suffixes and infixes and prefixes to change the everything, meaning, person, everything. And so it was difficult to kind of get into the mindset for it.
Okay.
But I actually started, like, obviously when you're learning a language at a school, it's different, right? You have a teacher. I did not ever study Turkish.
Okay.
Because I never had time, because all of the language schools have the same schedule. So any of the language courses that offered Turkish offered those courses at the same time I was working.
Okay.
So I never got to go to a class. But my first thing that I started doing, and I didn't speak any Turkish when I got there, except for a few words, obviously, no full sentences. And I paid attention to advertisements for international brands.
Okay.
So like Coca-Cola was like open happiness and enjoy and things like that.
Right.
And these are the same in English. So I was able to pick out like, oh, okay, so that's happiness. And then the same thing with like Snickers, like you're not yourself when you're hungry type thing.
Okay.
So I actually used advertisements to learn some really basic grammar.
Coca-Cola and Snickers. So you're learning basically like adjectives, vocabulary, those like maybe some adverbs.
And a little bit of grammar.
Okay.
I did buy a grammar book from the bookstore. So I was kind of teaching myself.
Well, at this point, are you using like YouTube videos or like, you're talking, you got some friends at this point,
I have some friends, like my coworkers. So, other English teachers at school who are Turkish. And so they would, I would learn things. I would listen. Listening was a big thing for me. Like, for the first few months, it was all just observing and listening to other people.
Okay.
Getting intonation and things like that. And then, because intonation and stress was actually really easy for me, I realized, because I had been listening the whole time and I could follow the rhythm. And then I would like try out new grammar and I would ask them and they would say no usually, and then help me figure out the right way to do it.
Could you get the intonation? Like when I hear Jansu talk to her parents, It is very melodic.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds more beautiful. When I hear Oljai speaking to Jansu, Oljai doesn't really intonate the words like Jansu does. I don't know why. You know what I'm
I
saying?
never noticed that, but I think
Like,
you're right.
Listen to them talk in Turkish.
I mean,
Jansu's
one thing
got
is
this
you'll
little
find,
bubbly.
but there's also a difference in the way you have the male and female speaking the language.
Okay,
So
there's a gender issue here.
yeah, in
Women.
any language.
Okay.
But it might be more pronounced. I guess in Turkish the men can sound more angry, because a lot of people think that Turkish is not a pretty language, and I completely disagree with that.
Okay.
Because because I love it. I think it's gorgeous. I used to listen to a radio talk show with this woman speaking. I had no idea what she was saying, but it sounded amazing.
Okay.
And yeah, so I think it actually is a beautiful language. But like, I don't know, like yeah, you know how in English we have the rising intonation at the end for questions, whereas in Turkish it's more like it rises and then falls.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
It's the same in Kyrgyz.
Yeah, the stress falls at the end of the base verb before the question ending.
So base verb, then the.
It's not a suffix. It's because it's disconnected, but it's the question.
And then it comes back down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you have like you can also, like, one of my favorite things in Turkish was the varya, which is equivalent to, like, you know how over there's the blah 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 blah. So you'll say in Turkish, you'll be like blah 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 varya.
Yeah.
And I used to love that part. It's like a your starting sentence.
Right.
And it works also when you're doing things with like the hani and the yani, which are no matter what they try to tell you, mean the exact same thing.
Yani.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. And so I learned that way, and then had friends, and eventually had friends that didn't speak English.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that was much more
you're
difficult, but it made
more
it
immersed.
Yeah.
Right?
Which was my goal, I guess,
Okay.
because I did want to learn Turkish.
Yeah.
Originally was only going to stay for a year,
Okay.
but you've been to Izmir.
I have. I lived in Izmir for 5 years. Yeah,
Izmir is really hard to leave.
It is hard to leave. Yeah. Those ferry boats.
Yes.
I would go back today just to ride another.
Izmir
ferry
has
boat.
everything. It has woods, mountains, beaches, still water, city, country. It's all mixed together.
And it's got food.
It does
got
have food. Lots of seafood, lots of
lots of good
kumpir.
Yeah, we're gonna have kumpir tonight, which is a baked potato, but they're
With everything in it.
They're
like
not really baked
everything.
potatoes, but we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so in 6 years of living in Turkey, that's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that longer than Mexico and Colombia?
Combined.
Okay, so there's the true love right there. Mediterranean, Turkish. But your Turkish you're also fluent in Turkish.
I was very fluent. I'm rusty now. I think
Okay.
I think I would need to go back for a few weeks to
Did you enjoy working there? I know you enjoyed living there, but did you enjoy
did
teaching?
enjoy working there.
Okay.
Yeah, I started teaching TOEFL there,
Okay.
and which is test prep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I developed the curriculum for my school.
Okay.
And then brought it over to my next school.
Okay.
And absolutely enjoyed teaching TOEFL because.
So this is like you're developing curriculum, you're putting together materials. I mean, you're working. I mean, this
Yeah.
is something you wouldn't do that unless you liked what you were doing.
Yeah, because they actually had curriculum when I got there, and I can't speak for the success rate of the students before, but I did not like the curriculum. It was tedious. It didn't make any sense.
Okay.
It was weird rotations, and so I fixed it. Yeah, the majority of my students were university students.
Because if they fail, they come back to the prep year. They're not allowed to go to the university, which they're already accepted in the university.
You would think that would be enough motivation for them.
You think.
But I actually do know a lot of stories about, like, students of mine who are like, yeah, I went to prep school 3 times. I'm like, oh, okay.
What happened?
Yeah.
Because something happened.
Yeah. They didn't show up.
You need a B1. You need in between B1 B2 to start your curriculum. And we had all the same. I know the books you're talking about. The publishers are approaching the universities every single day. You know, Peterson, Cornell's, all the major players are there, right? So it's just like every year it seemed like we were getting new material, right? And it was just, we had good teachers. A lot of us had CELTA certificates. You know, we were supposed to be doing research. So the university was sort of serious about the faculty. So I think the faculty, I know we were all, the majority of us were qualified, I think, as English language instructors. I get big on that sometimes, but yeah, I shouldn't get that big on that. But, okay, so let's go back to, okay, so you leave Turkey.
Yes.
Because you want to go back home and finish and complete your degree.
Correct.
All right, so you go back home. You have now successfully graduated with a degree in?
Major in Spanish and a minor in applied linguistics.
From the greatest university, Salisbury.
The greatest university in Salisbury.
Is Salisbury.
Salisbury University.
We've talked about, you've been here for a couple of weeks. We've talked about you want to go to graduate school.
Yes.
What do you want to study in graduate school?
So I want to go into Hispanic applied linguistics.
Okay.
Yes. Focusing on second language acquisition.
What does that mean for somebody who doesn't know what that means?
So applied linguistics is a really broad topic. It involves a little bit of descriptive linguistics, but mostly sociolinguistics. So, you know, a lot of like, how can linguistics affect the world and make it a better place? Because that's the goal of a linguist. And second language acquisition is studying how people learn languages, and that feeds into creating the pedagogy for teaching the language.
Right.
And the reason, well, I absolutely fell in love with linguistics when I took it as a minor. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I taught English and Spanish as a second language. And I noticed very quickly that English pedagogy and the teaching styles and the books and the materials we have are well thought out, logical, and fast. People can learn English with the right class, if in the right hours, you can, within a few months, you can speak a fairly decent level of English.
Right.
And not so much with Spanish. There are no full immersion program materials. They seem to never follow one order. And so I've noted that it's a need. No one's really studied the way Spanish is taught enough, I think. Because even like you have the Cervantes Institute, which is like they have a test that would be considered like the TOEFL for Spanish. Okay. And so they also have their own rules for how the language should be taught, guidelines.
Is it also a publishing company?
No.
Okay.
No, but they do
so it's a test
license.
It's like ETS.
It is. It is. But they license out their like methods, but they're not good.
Okay. Because
I've used their books and it's slow. The students don't grasp the way they do when we teach English. Okay. And I mean, it requires a lot more. I mean, obviously the teacher has to work, right? There should be effort on the teacher's part, but lots of times when you're teaching English, there isn't much effort in some of the books. In some of the topics are almost self-explanatory the way that they're laid out. Right. And that doesn't happen at all. I had to use a lot of supplemental materials and rewriting some of the order of the chapters in these books. And it shouldn't be that way. So
do you see yourself creating a book for Spanish?
That's where the money is, isn't it?
Learners? Yeah. I don't know. Is it?
I assume publishing. Okay. That's.
Would you work with a publisher, or would you go ahead and just
create a method?
Create the book, create the method, the activities.
No, I would probably
the units, and then sell it.
Publisher, probably.
Okay, working with a publisher.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Have you enjoyed your trip to Germany?
Yes.
Yeah. Because now, like you've never been to this part of Germany, right? East Germany.
I'd never been to any part of Germany.
Really? It's your first time to Germany?
I've been in airports before.
Okay.
But Frankfurt and Berlin.
Okay. So how did you? I mean, you're leaving this weekend. Have you enjoyed your trip?
Yes,
Yeah?
absolutely.
What's the top part of the trip?
The top part of the trip.
The most exciting part of the trip?
Wandering around cities.
Yeah.
That's like a thing I like to do. So,
You visited
Dresden.
Leipzig. You visited
Leipzig,
Dresden.
yeah.
You saw a little bit of Berlin.
Yes, and we'll see more this weekend.
Okay. So, yeah, it's been like, I hope you've had a good experience here. Like, Dessau is,
It has its own charm.
yeah. It was destroyed completely.
When are they going to rebuild it?
They're not. They only took priority in certain cities like Dresden and Leipzig, and like 5 kilometers from here, they were manufacturing planes, that were bombing, and then over here there was like ammunition depots and stuff. This whole city was wiped. You're working for a organization in America that helps immigrants, migrants, refugees.
Okay.
Tell us what you're doing right now.
Okay, so I actually work for a mediation company. It's a nonprofit. They work in mediation mostly, which is
nonprofit means how is the project funded? Is it
through
funded
grants?
Okay.
So there's a larger like umbrella organization, also nonprofit that funds all the different local community mediation centers, and so they offer mediation services. So it can be anywhere. Sometimes it's court mandated, where it's something where the courts are like, okay, you guys don't need to take this to court. You can have mediation to solve this problem.
Wait, give us an example of what you don't need to take to court.
Like, for example, someone damaged someone's car and they're trying to sue them for it, but it's like their cousin or something. It could be anything.
But this is mostly like in, what's the correct term, like Latino communities or
No,
Hispanic
that's
communities?
a different aspect. I'll get to that part.
Okay.
I'm giving you the overall of the company of the mediation organization.
Okay.
And community mediation can be used for anybody. It's free to everyone. If you have an argument with your brother or your sister,
I can use it.
You can use it.
Okay.
If you, like your brother and sister, who's going to take care of the parents now that they're old, right?
Okay.
You're planning a party and you can't agree on something. Like literally any kind of
so there has to be some
dispute.
kind of conflict or disagreement, and they search out for the
So the mediator in community mediation, it's called alternative dispute resolution, and the community mediation is the type of that. The mediators do not offer solutions or show sides. They simply that's called reflecting. They ask questions back to each people to make sure that they are communicating with each other.
Okay.
And then they write on the board the participants' ideas to solve. So the participants come up with their own solutions with no interference from the mediators. There are other types of mediation.
Is it difficult to remain impartial? Sometimes.
When you're new, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It
When
is.
you're new, exactly.
It takes a while to get used to it.
Yeah.
But I've only observed so far. I haven't mediated yet.
Ah, okay.
We have to do 2 full mediation observations before we can actually mediate.
So what case did you sit in on?
I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Okay, that's
It's completely confidential.
confidential.
Yes.
Date shoots.
Mm-hmm. It was a disagreement out of business, though.
Okay.
So
it's
with
about money.
so it was actually a facilitation. We would call it a facilitation when it's a large group like that, because there were like 20 people.
Okay, so that's one aspect.
Mm-hmm.
What's another aspect?
The one thing that our director does is she also facilitates for the community in general, and so during the pandemic, she got leaders within the community and through them connections to other leaders within the communities, businesses, other nonprofits, things like that, to create a coalition of over 40 companies that have created this. It's called the Lower Shore Vulnerable Populations Task Force. Mm-hmm. And we help. That's where I was pulled on as originally I interned as an interpreter. Mm-hmm. Because there is a Latinx population. We have a large Latinx population and we have a large Haitian population. Mm-hmm. And I was taken on, I was an intern helping with interpretation and then whatever else the task force needed. Mm-hmm. And then after I graduated, she offered me a job.
Okay.
And I'm doing the same thing basically for the mediation. I'm also a mediator, but at the same time I'm continuing the task force with the
Okay.
task force. So I'm more like a communications liaison for everyone there.
Okay.
I've created a website and I send out all the emails and a lot of stuff. And so we help community members that normally wouldn't have access to services access those services, and more importantly, we help organizations remove the barriers that they, whether advertently or inadvertently, have placed in front of their services. Like, one of our biggest things that I'm focused on is language access. You know, when you go like, hey, we offer law services to immigrants that want to get citizenship, right? But they only have their services in English.
Right.
So an immigrant doesn't speak English usually, and they don't offer interpreters, and they have no information in any of the languages that they're offering services to. So we work with the companies to create plans for how they can. And we've actually gotten funding for from the government. One of our members is a senator.
Okay.
And they've actually pushed through legislation to get funding for interpreters for these companies.
So let me ask a very interesting question then, because I know what the answer is here in Germany. Do you have to speak English in America to be integrated into that community, into that society? Is it necessary to speak English? As an American, what do you think? Like, not as you're working for your organization, but just as an American.
What do you mean integrated, though?
Integrated, like working, living, like, you know, having
Not
a life.
necessarily. I mean, you're very limited if you don't speak English, yes.
Okay.
There are always jobs for people that don't have the language skills.
Limited or very limited?
Very limited.
Okay, I don't want you to say very limited, but that's okay. I'll cut that out.
No, it's not like that. It also depends on where you live. Like, I mean, in an area like I live, you're going to be working at McDonald's or cleaning houses or hotels. That's it. I mean, so linguistic ability or the degree of fluency of English can, of course, it might be not determinate, but it's going to be somewhat determinate of the type of work. Absolutely. Your job prospects. It influences your job prospects a lot. Yeah. But I mean, other places, you know, it would.
I always tell the examples to my students, like, go to Little Italy, go to like Chinatown, go to like,
yeah, I mean, there's always places.
And find people, and they're perfectly like happy and living healthy, and they don't speak a word of English.
Right. In a larger city, that's absolutely true. Yeah. But remember, I live in a very small city.
That's right. Salisbury,
yes. The population is 30,000.
Okay.
And 10,000 of those are students from the university.
Okay.
So
what is the Latino population in your city or in your
that's a good
county?
Question. I mean, I think we're actually right on par for the demographics. I think we're at like
13%?
No, it's higher than that. I think it's anywhere between 16 and 18%.
Okay.
Is Latinx, yeah.
So out of the 300 and how many people live in America? 360 million?
330 million, I think.
Like I know that like I don't want to aggregate the whole like Spanish speaking people into one like one category, but it is 35% of the US population.
Could be. I'm not sure. The new demographics came out, and I don't remember all of the. I remember that white has gone down to 61%.
Yeah,
from 75.
So you hear that, Germans? Take some Spanish lessons before you go to the States.
I remember there was one statistic a long time ago. I'm not sure how accurate it was, and including second language speakers, 54% of the population spoke Spanish. Okay. But like I said, I'm not sure. I don't know what the requirements were for that. Like,
my mother speaks a little Spanish. She's 80 years old.
Yeah. Like, somebody who takes Spanish 1, are they included in that, or do you have to be fluent?
She would be. Yeah, that would be. But. Okay, so that's one part of the job, mediating like from a legal perspective. Mm-hmm. What's another aspect of your job that you would like to, could you talk about?
Well, with the task force, we do events, and we service 3 county areas, and I think we service more than that, but we have 3 main county areas that we service for the task force, and we do outreach at least once a month in those areas, where we provide free food, like usually it's 2 boxes. Usually it's a box of produce and then a box of dry goods, perishables. Yeah. And all of our service providers also will set up a table there and offer information on how they can reach the community, you know, sign them up for things. We do things like school system is part of our organization. So they help parents sign up their children for school. Right now it's big on getting immunizations. We've been doing the COVID vaccine. We often have COVID vaccines available at our events. Okay. And this time of year we also have the flu shot. And then we have people helping with rental assistance and finding a job, college assistance. Okay. And, you know.
So the full spectrum of opportunities.
Yeah. When we bring it to the community, we move the location within the county because not everybody has a car. So we make sure that we're close, that everyone's available. Everybody can get there.
That's key. Not everybody has
walking.
a car. That's right.
And
so are you using Spanish every single day when you're working?
No. But at every event, yes.
Yeah.
I do translate. Like I'm translating the website and translating the documents for our organization, the mediation organization, because that side was not in. It was one of the things that, you know, all of these companies, they don't have any information other than English. So that's part of my job is to update all of our documents so that they're also available in Spanish. Okay. And but sometimes I do like scheduling, like if I get a phone call in Spanish, but normally I speak Spanish only at the events. Yeah.
Okay. Well, dude, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I think we can wrap it up, dude. It's been 1 hour. Well, Richard, I hope that your life sounds extremely interesting. I like it. And I hope that you've enjoyed your time in Germany.
Absolutely.
And we wish you the best in accomplishing all your goals and dreams. And we hope to see you soon. How about that?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in. Dun, dun, dun. Last words? Last words in Spanish.
I'm on the spot.
Maybe something like, thank you for listening to our podcast.
Gracias por escuchar a nuestro podcast. Espero que les hayan gustado.
Perfect. Thank you for listening to En Lingua Podcast, live from Dessau. We hope you stay tuned for more episodes.